Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mean Green Gameday. I am your host, Mark Barrera, joined by Jake Levine, Justin Ballou, and Connor Hibbett. The UNT Mean Green played against the FIU Panthers last week on homecoming day and absolutely blew the doors off, looking as impressive as they had all season, winning 52-14. Guys, what did y'all think about this extraordinary win?
Really, I don't think we could have asked for any better from this team. I mean, 52-14, we were talking, they dominated total yards, really. I mean, 623 to 258 in total yards. It's just, we really can't ask for any better. The momentum this team has right now is just unprecedented, and we really want to see them continue it in today. Even though UAB is definitely a tougher team than FIU, it was just really good to see them have a perfectly sound game.
And we talked about how it was potentially a trap game with UTSA, Western Kentucky, and then UAB on deck, obviously, this week. But they went in, just handled business, just completely took control of that game in really the first half, and then just, like you said, Mark, just blew the doors off FIU. That was great to see. Didn't overlook the team, as I kind of talked about last week, that being the key. And homecoming win, another one. That was awesome.
Yeah, a trap game against FIU.
I know. That didn't sound right, but
Yeah.
with the schedule, it
Right.
seemed that way.
So UNT is 6-4 straight up, 7-3 against the spread. We're actually, based on what Vegas has thought UNT was for this season, we've been one of the more impressive teams and one of the more surprising teams. Vegas has totally been wrong about UNT. So have I. I've been guilty of that too. They're much better than what I thought. And I'll take it, obviously. I love being in a situation where, like, almost every single one of my favorite teams this season, I'm not going to give away all of my favorite teams, but most of my teams this year are actually playing really well. All have a chance to play in their respective conference championship games, of course, with the Mean Green leading the way.
That's right.
Mean Green have been totally awesome this year. It was a trap game. We totally dominated. It was a domination from the start. 15 more first downs. We didn't win by just 15 points. No, we won by much more than that. We outgained them by almost 400 yards. Again, 15 more first downs. We ran 14 more plays than them, and that was including a second half where we just kind of like took the foot off the gas and just kind of hit cruise control from that point. So just imagine if we didn't hit cruise control.
Right.
But obviously we were just trying to get the win, not really worried about the style points. We're not playing for a playoff spot. We're not worried about the style points right now.
Right.
And last year, it was stressful going into that UTSA game because we had to win that to go to a bowl game. This year, now 10 games in, we're bowl eligible. So that's really good to see.
Right.
We're heading to the postseason. Now, a lot obviously still up for grabs with the CUSA championship scenarios, but great to be going bowling after 10 games, guys.
And
It really is.
we love to talk about time of possession, right?
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
UNT won time of possession by nearly 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And we just saw immediately the first half. I mean, it was just within the first quarter, you could tell, wow, they're just going to dominate this game just by not even running the ball a lot. I mean, Austin Ani had almost 400 pass yards at halftime. So it didn't even take the running to complete time of possession.
Guys, you know, it's almost silly to think that FIU is a trap game given how well we performed. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But, you know, talking about the beginning of this season, I think after the loss to UNLV, a lot of people were coming at, you know, the man in charge, Seth Luttrell, and he's put on a great season so far. Mm-hmm. It talks about there's a possible talks about an extension going on. His overall record at UNT is 43-42, so right above 500. Justin, I'm going to start with you. What do you think that's a good move to extend Seth Luttrell?
Well, obviously, with it being the last year in Conference USA, they're going to have a decision to make with his contract expiring too. But I think with Connor mentioned how much this team has exceeded expectation this year, I think just given that you're 6-4, you're probably going to end up with at least 7 wins now playing Rice in a couple weeks. I think he's going to get an extension for at least one more season just because you're going bowling and probably to the Conference USA championship game. And I don't think any of us saw that coming at the start of the season. Mm-hmm. So as much as, you know, we may not want to hear that, I think that's probably the best move just given how much this team has, come back the last couple seasons after rough non-conference play, especially last season. We were 1-6 and then made a bowl game. I think he's going to get an extension for at least one more year at least. I want to see how it goes the first year in the American for sure, though.
And like if you look at the last couple of years, we've completely turned things around. We were 2019, 2020 kind of seemed like a downward spiral, and in the last couple of seasons, we've won 10 of our last 11 conference games. That's a college football national fun fact for you because there's not many teams who can say that have played that well for that long period of a time. But my goodness, guys, the power ratings simply say that UNT shouldn't be playing this good. So not only are we exceeding expectations and having a really good season, we didn't have these expectations of even coming close to this year. We were just talking about with our non-conference schedule with how difficult it was just to simply get to bowl eligibility. And here we are with the chance to play in a conference championship, and we were just a few plays away from potentially hosting the conference championship.
Yeah.
We're just totally proving everybody wrong. Like Vegas, myself, probably most of us coming into the season. So it's not like we had this tremendous team coming into the season. It's like this is the chance for our breakthrough year, and we're having a breakthrough season and a season where we're expected to win 4, 5, 6 games.
And that's why I think a lot of the credit has to go to the coaching staff here, because we mentioned none of us saw this coming. They have a winning record now. They're going to end up with a winning record as long as they don't lose to Rice and UAB. Looks like they're going to finish with a winning record. And yeah, I mean, second straight year going bowling with Seth Luttrell after 2 seasons where they struggled in non-conference play. So I think that you have to give him credit for that and at least give him one more season.
I would have no problem actually seeing him get maybe a 2 or 3 year extension, because I think really not only has this season been really promising lately, but I think the atmosphere around this program has just been uplifted so much by the hot streak that they're on. And I think that actually circles around what Seth Luttrell's been doing with the playbook, and in the locker room you hear just the speeches are very just uplifting to the team. So I think we could see maybe actually a 2 or 3 year extension, maybe not 1 year.
And I like the way that they've been able to make adjustments too. We saw Stone Earl the last few weeks getting involved in the run game. I believe he led us in rushing last week, which is really impressive. So I love how he's been able to make adjustments, go back and watch the film. We talked about early in the season there not being creativity on the offense. That's really changed over the last few weeks, and that's why they almost beat UTSA, probably should have beat UTSA, beat Western Kentucky, then blew the doors off FIU. So you saw the creativity and the adjustments coming in full force these last few weeks. So love to see that.
For sure. And, he has gone to 4 bowl games so far in his career tender. He hasn't won one yet, but maybe this is the year
I was going to say,
that they break it through, and then they finally go. And UNT has not won a bowl game since 2014 against UNLV, and that was 36-14.
And you got to think that next year is going to be about a rebuild, really. Going into the American, you're going to lose Austin Allen, you're going to have a new quarterback. So that's why I think it's important that they're doing this season. Hopefully they get the conference championship, too, to go with it. But next year's looking a little bit rough. So that's why I kind of agree with you, Jake. Maybe give him 2 more years, just because next year's going to be rough all around, just playing SMU and, Tulane's ranked right now. UCF's really good. So it's going to be tough next year for sure. But, yeah, I'd like to see Seth back for another year, just given this season.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for our tough non-conference this season, or the tough non-conference we've had the last several years, really, think about we could be one of the biggest breakthrough stories in college football. And the thing about college football is a lot of people look at the record. They don't really look at how strong a team is more so than the record. Teams, I think in college football, schedules really dictate what the national story is of every single team. And for this season, with UNT's schedule, with how it set us up, it's been a little bit difficult because we had some difficult games early on, and so you look at the record, it's like it's 1-2, it's like, they're not that good of a team. Meanwhile, we're actually a really good team. We just played some really good teams in the non-conference. That's the problem. UNT, if we had won a couple of those or if we had an easier non-conference schedule, we could be looking at potentially a double-digit win season.
And you can talk about the tough non-conference schedule. Sure, you get losses out of them, but I think it's actually really good for the team and the program to be playing those games against these high-level schools. I mean, aside from Texas Southern, we had a really competitive non-conference schedule, and it's going to continue coming up. Next year, first game of the season, we're hosting a Pac-12 team at Apogee Stadium, and it's going to continue later years with Baylor, Texas Tech. I know we've got coming up. So it's really good to see, actually, that they're able to schedule these big opponents.
Could y'all imagine UNT at Apogee hosting a CUSA championship? Because we were really just a couple plays away. Just
a one-handed catch away.
And
a missed field goal.
Coming back. Guys, when we return, we are going to talk about a little bit of the college football playoff rankings, so please stay with us.
UNT and soar to new heights.
Hey, listen to my flow to save some H2O. This my water run, and this is how it goes. First, turn off the sink and take some time to think. When you waste water, our supply shrinks. When you take a shower, not more than an hour. Shoot for 10 minutes and save water power. Use a reusable bottle, smart like Aristotle. Ditch all the plastic and be a role model. And that was my H2O flow. Please remember how it goes, because if you don't, Earth will go, oh no!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mean Green Gameday. The college football playoff rankings have came out, and guys, it is a little interesting how this ranking came out. Number 1, you have Georgia. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Michigan. Obviously, those two are going to meet at the end of the season. And number 4, Dream Team TCU.
Yes, love it.
Yeah, so I mean, guys, we got to get into it right away. Who has the better chance of making it to the college football playoff, TCU or number 5, Tennessee? Jake, I want to go with you.
So I'm actually going to go with TCU here, and here's why. So Tennessee, nearly mathematically, can't be in the SEC championship game. I mean, it would take a miracle for them to reach the SEC championship game, assuming they're on the same side as Georgia, right? And they lost to Georgia head-to-head. So I think it's actually more likely that TCU finishes the season undefeated. They have a very tough schedule at the end of the regular season here, and then they've got the Big 12 championship game. I think it's actually more likely, although still unlikely, I think it's more likely that TCU wins all the way out than Tennessee makes it in without winning the SEC championship and with one regular season loss. I just think that's a more probable scenario.
Well, good for TCU finally getting the recognition that they deserve.
For sure.
I mean, they should have been in the top 4 last week. I don't know why they were at 7 to begin with, but I actually disagree with you. I think Tennessee has the better shot. I think even with that loss, their final 3 games are Missouri, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt, so they're going to win out. And TCU has a really tough path ahead of them. They play Texas today on the road and then have to play in the Big 12 championship most likely. The committee doesn't want to put TCU in. TCU's going to have to win out to get in, whereas, you know, Tennessee playing in the SEC, that was probably the best loss of the season playing against Georgia, and they didn't play well in that game, but they're still right there at number 5. As you mentioned, Ohio State and Michigan are still going to play. So Tennessee's still in this thing, guys, and I think they have a much better chance than TCU because TCU has to win out, and Tennessee's going to win out. So.
Right.
So we have a lot of chaos this year with the playoff scenario. Last year we had a little bit of chaos potentially with Cincinnati. And I remember last year we discussed all the scenarios for Cincinnati and then what was behind them, what they would have to go through, what help they would need. So those little things in the rankings, the week-by-week stuff, people will say, well, it doesn't matter right now, it'll work itself out. For some teams, yes, but it also could mean some things are scripted. So I know last week we discussed on the show that we thought LSU was way too high for the 10th ranked spot. Now, obviously, LSU beat Alabama, so people would say in hindsight, well, they deserve to be 10th. No, they didn't. It doesn't take away that they shouldn't have been there in the first place. Now, is LSU better than we thought? Yes. But it also shows what the playoff committee was trying to set up. Had Alabama beat LSU, that would have been a top 10 win, correct? Well, guess what Alabama's next game was? Ole Miss. Had LSU lost to Bama, Ole Miss, who was right behind LSU in the rankings, would have climbed to 10. And guess what? That would have been potentially another top 10 win for Alabama. You see, they're trying to set up Bama here. So what does this mean for right now? That's the scenario that I'm looking at. And so I think Jake brings up a really good point with Tennessee and how they're probably not going to play for the conference championship for the SEC, meaning a one-loss team with no conference championship and who didn't even win their own division, much less.
Right.
So what does that mean moving forward? There's a lot of things we can look at. I know there's some Pac-12 teams in discussion right now, but that's what I'm trying to set up here. Some things, the week-by-week stuff, it could mean something for later, those little things. that's what the playoff committee is trying to hint, or not. They're not trying to hint, but those are the hints that you can catch on.
Yeah.
And if Alabama had beat LSU last week, we would have saw Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama all in the playoff, guys. We would have had
Probably,
3 SEC teams if that had happened. So
Yeah.
good job, LSU. Thank you.
Yes, thank you,
Thank you for
LSU.
eliminating
Thank
Bama.
you.
Thank
Right.
you.
Yeah, guys. Connor, you mentioned the Pac-12. We're going to talk about them right now. You got right behind Tennessee, which is very funny. Number 6, Oregon. Number 8, USC. Number 12, UCLA. And number 13, Utah. I mean, Utah is one of those sleeper teams that they can knock any one of those
Yes.
teams above them out. I know you don't like that. but Utah, I promise you, Utah can knock any one of them out. But, guys, who do you think is coming out of this Pac-12? Because I personally think they're just going to beat up on each
Yeah.
other, and there's no possible way for a Pac-12 team to make the playoff.
Yeah.
Jack, I want to go with you.
So I think I could see Oregon coming out of the Pac-12, and I think really actually if any of them win out, they have to be considered for the playoff, right? I mean, they'll be a one-loss team. So but I think most likely is Oregon just because they are the overall best team in that conference. So I'll just give the edge to them. But what I'm saying is if any of these teams go all the way and they finish with one loss with a conference championship trophy, you have to at least give them a sniff at the playoff, right? I mean, I don't think you can leave them out as long as TCU loses a game.
But isn't the Pac-12 in this situation every single year where they have a team right there and then they end up losing or just not making it in? I don't remember the last time the Pac-12 was in the playoff. It's probably Oregon.
2016,
Yeah,
Washington.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Washington.
Washington.
And
Got the
then
doors blown
Arizona
off by
State beat
Bama.
Oregon a couple years ago when Jaden Daniels used to play for Arizona State, and that's what took Oregon out of consideration.
Yeah, I think Oregon has the best chance. I mean, Bo Nix is playing really well in his first year there, and Dan Lanning's doing a good job. But I think based off where Oregon's been ranked, the committee is really reluctant to put them in because they got killed by Georgia week 1 by 46 points. And I think the committee sees that as well, if we put Oregon in the playoff, they're just going to get killed. And I think they see the exact same thing with TCU with how they've fallen behind in games.
Right.
So USC, guys, we're going to do playoff predictions in the next block. But I don't get how they're ranked over UCLA, but just given their ranking, I think USC may have the best chance out of these teams. UCLA has wins over Washington and Utah this season, which is better than anything USC has done. But USC's ranked higher because they have that brand recognition. They have fans in attendance, whereas UCLA doesn't. So that plays a factor too. But the committee clearly likes USC over UCLA. So look out for the Trojans. They're coming, guys.
So I got a paper popper for y'all. No surprise, but brand bias is going to come into play, and that's where kind of
Always.
Justin's kind of leading towards here with USC and the UCLA situation. Yeah, the Pac-12 could beat itself up, Mark. I think you make a good point there. See, Oregon right now, I think, is the best team in the Pac-12. They're certainly playing the best football right now in the conference. But their schedule moving forward, they have a ranked Washington today. And also, look out for ranked wins. That's something to keep in mind when the committee is splitting hairs. That's the term they're going to be using here in the coming weeks. Yeah. It's always fun to see them say, splitting hairs, splitting hairs. I love hearing that. But Oregon has a ranked Washington in Eugene today. Then they have a ranked Utah the following weekend in Eugene. Then maybe a ranked Oregon State in Corvallis, and Oregon State's only lost once there the last 2 years, and that was this season to USC in a game that they almost won. Difficult place to play. So if Oregon wins out, which is not going to be easy, then they're still going to have to play in the conference championship against what will be a likely either ranked UCLA or USC most likely, which is going to be another difficult game. So Oregon's going to have to win out, and even then, will they be considered? Because yes, if they win out, win the Pac-12 championship, that's a one-loss conference champion, but transitive property, they lost to Georgia by 46. Meanwhile, Tennessee lost at Georgia by only 14.
And then-
will that
yeah.
come into
And they
play?
beat Bama too.
And then
Right.
the thing is, you're also going to have a one-loss Michigan or Ohio State in there as well.
Right.
Exactly.
So
That's where
Right,
base
you
goes,
have to
guys.
keep them in it.
But
As
with
long as
Oregon
they only lose
State,
once.
USC's best win is over Oregon State, and they're not even ranked anymore. So that's why I don't understand why USC is right up there in the top 10.
Yeah.
UCLA's resume is better. But
And because of that situation that Justin just brought up with Oregon State not being ranked, and that's USC's best win, let's see if Oregon State climbs up in the rankings again.
sure.
I could see them knocking off Oregon and just throwing everything into
Yeah.
a frenzy
Yeah.
in the Pac-12. This happens every year,
That could
guys.
be a
with
cool
these
upset.
conferences.
But guys, with the chaos alluding to the SEC, to the Pac-12, to the Pac-12, and just ACC, we're going to talk about them later. They're done after that.
Yeah.
Completely
But
done.
afterwards, I mean, are we going to see 2 SEC teams in the college football playoff again? Because, I mean, I look back at it, it really only has happened 2 or 3 times. But are we going to see that SEC bias creep in and 2 SEC teams go into the college football playoff? Justin,
I think 2 SEC teams are a lock because I think Tennessee's getting in just with all the teams playing each other in front of them. LSU, guys, keep an eye on LSU because we could have 3 SEC teams in this thing. If LSU was to beat Georgia, I think they could be the first 2-loss team to ever make the playoff because if not for that blocked extra point week 1 against Florida State, LSU's a 1-loss team.
Right.
So, I mean, they're definitely better than their record shown, and credit them for beating Bama last week. We could see 3 SEC teams, depending on what TCU and the Pac-12 do. Those are going to be the key factors there.
So I actually think it's kind of less likely than Justin thinks, just because I think actually TCU, like I said earlier, has a better chance than Tennessee. That's probably an unpopular opinion, but I think TCU has a decent chance to win out, better chance than we think. That's just because I'm a huge TCU guy this year. But if somehow Georgia loses the SEC championship game, then yeah, we're gonna have two SEC teams in the playoffs, probably LSU in that game, right? So I think that's actually the most likely way this happens. Although I would really not like to see that. I want one SEC team in this playoff.
Well, Tennessee's resume is also better than Michigan and Ohio State, so that's why I think the loser of that game is going to get knocked out, and that's why you bump Tennessee. And so two SEC teams as a law.
Okay, I'm glad you brought up resume because there's a situation right now. We have 5 3-loss teams that are ranked in the top 25. So you're probably thinking, what the heck is going on there? And I think one of the more popular topics has been, why is Kentucky ranked? So
SEC, that's why.
Exactly. So SEC for one thing, but here's also something I said earlier in this segment that the little things, the week-to-week little things, it's going to matter later down the line. The committee is setting up something. They're trying to script something. That's at least my opinion with that, although it may not be the most popular opinion. I'll be scrutinized for that comment probably later on, but we'll see.
I agree with you, though.
But Kentucky is ranked. That's a ranked win for Tennessee. If the committee is, splitting hairs between teams such as TCU and Tennessee later on, keep in mind, TCU right now, at the time that they won their respective games, they have 4 ranked wins. A couple of those teams are no longer ranked like Oklahoma and Kansas. Meanwhile, Tennessee, including Kentucky, 5 ranked wins at the time that Tennessee won those respective games. The difference with those ranked wins, Kentucky. I think that's why Kentucky is currently ranked, is because they're trying to script Tennessee over TCU if need be, because what is the committee going to say on Selection Sunday? We're trying to pick the 4 best teams, and they need to have a little bit of help there to try to further provide reason why we think Tennessee should be ahead of TCU. That could be a situation later down the line, which is why I think right now Kentucky is ranked.
And that's so unfair because no other conference gets that treatment like the SEC. Just wanted to throw that in.
It's just the money that SEC brings.
Connor, you mentioned Kentucky being not ranked. I know you really wanted to hit this. Why is Illinois ranked? Because Illinois being ranked at 21 just is awful to me. They lost 23-10 to Indiana and 23-15 just this past week to Michigan State. And they have no ranked wins currently as whatsoever. But Jake, I know you wanted to
Okay,
go
so we said this a few times last week, this phrase. This makes no sense. I don't understand this one at all. So last year, Illinois was terrible. They were like awful. And so this is just so dumb to me. They have 2 losses. They're both bad losses. Indiana and Michigan State, both proven bad teams. They haven't played a ranked team yet. Won or lost to a ranked team. So I don't get this one at all. I think I would love to see a team like Liberty be ranked.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I think Liberty has a much better case for being ranked than Illinois.
And Illinois' best wins are against Minnesota and Wisconsin, which, as you mentioned, not ranked. Whereas Liberty's sitting there 8-1 with wins over BYU and Arkansas, guys.
Yeah.
Like, that is a much better resume than the Illini have. Definitely. Frustrating. Give the group of 5 some love, committee.
Exactly. I know you wanted to go off
Purdue will take care of that Illinois ranking today.
Gosh.
Well, maybe Illinois is just ranked to give Ohio State or Michigan another ranked win in the Big Ten championship. That's all I can think of.
I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's
Rank Liberty committee.
Yeah, rank Liberty. Guys, when we come back, we talked about college football playoff just now, but when we come back, we are going to predict our own top 4 of the college football playoff, so please stay with us.
Sometimes we can do things that exclude others.
You're still talking to your friend?
It's complicated. I think he went back in. We gotta go get him.
Welcome to Jumanji.
Even the smallest word can have a big effect on someone. You have the skills. Because of you, someone's entire day, their year, or their life can change.
Remember, the future is in your hands.
Visit becauseofyou.org to learn more.
Totally, let's do it. I call you and say, I'm with the IRS. You owe back taxes, and if you don't pay today, you're going to jail. You can fix this by sending cash. And you actually believe me? Too smart to fall for it? Well, last year, Americans paid $100 million to guys like me. 1 in 6 people were scammed. Can you believe it? Well, you shouldn't. I just made that up, too. You are a little gullible.
Texas, where our pride, strength, and unity keep our spirits high as we march forward. Showing our pride by saying don't mess with Texas means we all gotta step up. Walk the walk, do our part to keep Texas clean and safe. Because after all these years, all these miles, all these traditions, for all of us Texans, including me, Matthew McConaughey, don't mess with Texas means don't litter.
Every year, 40% of all food in the U.S. never gets eaten.
40%. That's almost half the food we produce.
Food waste is a serious problem. It impacts all of us.
And it's expensive. Your family is throwing $1,500 a year in the trash.
We're working hard to put food waste on the chopping block.
And you can do the same at home.
Learn how to cook it, store it, and share it.
Just don't waste it.
Go to SaveTheFood.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mean Green Game Day. I'm your host, Mark Barrera. Next to me is Jake Levine, Justin Ballou, Connor Hibbett. Guys, the top 4 playoffs, the college football playoff, such an interesting topic. It's one of the most beautiful times of the year. We're going to discuss on what we think is going to be the top 4. My number 1 is Georgia. The Bulldogs are they're on top. Yeah. That's what it is. They're the best team in college football as of right now. Definitely could change, but I don't think it'll happen soon. Number 2, I have Ohio State. I think they're going to win out. I think they're going to get revenge for that loss they had against Michigan last year. CJ Stroud is playing amazing. Number 3, I have TCU. So, Jake, I know you're going to like that. Yes. I think the biggest test they have is tonight, going to Austin, trying to beat the Longhorns. And if they do that, I think nothing can stop them from winning the Big 12 championship. Yeah. So let me go with the TCU Horned Frogs at number 3. Number 4, I have Tennessee just because I think it's so easy for them to win out. It's Missouri, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. Their best win is against LSU. They blew the doors off LSU 40-13. And then they beat Bama, obviously, 52-49. I think Tennessee, just even despite the one loss to Georgia, that's the number 1 ranked team, they're going to be in that number 4 spot. Jake, who do you think is your top 4?
Well, guys, first off, this is just the best time of the year, isn't it? We've got chaos in college football. We've got the holidays coming up. Can't ask for any better. Anyways, I have Georgia, and then I have Ohio State because that's what everyone with a right brain should have. They're the 2 best teams in the country. And then number 3, I've got Michigan, and here's why. So I think Michigan's going to lose to Ohio State, right? And then they'll finish with 1 loss. I think a 1-loss Michigan can still make it into the playoff. I think they're still going to have a good enough resume. Okay, and then number 4, I have the Oregon Ducks. So here's why. They're ranked 6th right now, right? Although I don't want it to happen, I think TCU might lose a game the rest of the season. And then I think Oregon can win out. I think they're capable of winning out and then winning the Pac-12 championship. I really don't think you can leave a 1-loss conference champion out of the playoff, right, over a team like Tennessee who didn't even win their division in the conference. So that's why I have Oregon as number 4. I just think that as long as they win out the regular season, take care of business conference championship, they have a very strong case for it as long as TCU loses a game.
Now, the one problem I have with that is Michigan at 3, because if they lose to Ohio State, the committee's not going to have them rematch each other a couple weeks later. So that's why I think the loser of that game is going to get knocked out for a team like Tennessee, because they'll both not be conference champions or having played in the conference championship game. And Tennessee has a better win than Michigan would have.
They have better wins.
Sure. Yeah, but I'm going Georgia, Ohio State too at 1 and 2. I think that's kind of the consensus here. Tennessee, I've got at 3. As I mentioned, the easiest remaining schedule of anyone in the top 10, with Missouri, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt on deck. And then look at that number 4, guys, USC. And this is solely based off the fact that the committee clearly loves them. And I just think I trust Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley better than Dan Lanning and Bo Nix. I think Oregon's going to lose a game somewhere. And I think USC, you see the bias with the committee there. The committee wants them to get in. So I think USC is going to run the table and make it in still.
In a look-ahead line, USC is currently a 3-point favorite at UCLA, so that might decide.
It's going to be a home game for them, basically, with the crowd, too. USC fans are going to travel.
Yeah, UCLA fans don't. The UCLA never has any technically home games with, no fans showing up. So my top 4, My playoff prediction is number 1, Georgia, number 2, Ohio State, number 3, Tennessee, and number 4, Michigan. So again, that consensus with the top 2 there, I don't think that's going to change a whole lot. Of course, unless we see Michigan go into Columbus and beat Ohio State, I just don't see that happening this year. Man, this playoff scenario, like I said in the last block, it's so crazy that we might even be looking at style points. And what I mean by that is it could come down, that 4th spot for the playoff, how much, if Michigan were to lose to Ohio State, how much Michigan loses in that game. Because if Michigan loses in a close game, the committee could still point at Michigan and say, but that's still a top 4 team because Ohio State's just one of the 2 best teams in the country. And then I think Tennessee at 3. Man, what a fun matchup that would be with Ohio State and Tennessee, arguably the 2 top offenses in the country. The reason why I had the order that way, Georgia won, Ohio State 2. Again, I don't think that's changing. Like Justin mentioned, I don't think they're going to have Michigan play Ohio State back-to-back. Not back-to-back, but it'd be 2 out of 3 games. I don't think they would have them playing in the semifinal against each other. And if you have Michigan at 4, you get a rematch of last year's semifinal between Georgia and Michigan.
And that's the problem I have with Michigan is like the committee saw them get absolutely blown out by Georgia last year, so I don't think they're going to want to have that happen again this year. And the thing about Michigan that's different about any of these teams is they don't have a sexy offense like Ohio State does, Georgia somewhat does with Brock Bowers, and Tennessee obviously is the best offense in the nation. And teams like USC and Oregon just have better, more explosive offenses and more exciting offenses. Whereas a team like Michigan just has a good run game, and really the quarterback still has question marks. So that's the one thing I would worry about with Michigan.
Even teams like TCU, TCU has such a high-powered offense. And I
Michigan isn't exciting to watch.
You make a great point with that, Connor. I did notice that you put Michigan in there. Do you got the Pac-12 out? Do you think they're just going to beat up on each other?
I think there's a situation, even if USC were to beat UCLA, I don't think USC wins the Pac-12 championship with whoever they might face. And I'm not convinced Oregon is going to win out because they've got 3 difficult games. I think they'll beat Washington. And I think they'll beat Utah in those 2 respective games at home. But again, those are like, I think. So if you throw in 3 with the last game of the season at Oregon State, which won't be easy. If you gave me 3 games for a team where it's like, I think they're going to win that, I think they're going to win that, I think they're going to win that. Well, you combine those 3, there's a pretty good chance for a loss in there because it's not sure thing. It's not like Tennessee, who's got Missouri at South Carolina and Vanderbilt. That's a much more difficult schedule for Oregon. So yes, Mark, I think the Pac-12 is going to beat up on each other. And who knows with the Big 12 this year? I still think TCU might have 1, if not maybe 2 losses on deck. Remember, they're going to still have to play at Baylor. Remember, TCU kept Baylor out of the playoff last year. Baylor hasn't forgotten about that. And TCU is going to be coming off the Texas game, 2nd straight road game. And they still have to play the Big 12 championship most likely. So TCU could still, again, have a couple losses on deck. This is going to be a wild playoff race. Again, I'm literally going with the style points for Michigan and Ohio State. That's how close I think this is going to be. I have no confidence after those top 2.
I just love that TCU is like the one just caveat to all this mess. It's like, well, if TCU doesn't lose, you have to put them in.
Yes, if TCU wins out, yes.
Right. But if they do lose, then they're automatically out. So it's just really interesting that they are the one team that is really just messing all of this up. And we love it, right?
It's almost like Cincinnati last year.
Right, it's exactly like Cincinnati.
That was awesome, man.
Oh, it was so awesome to
Even
see
though they are a
Cincinnati.
Big 12 team. But
And TCU arguably still has the best resume in the country, but as you mentioned, the style points, TCU does not have style points because they keep falling behind big time in every single game. And that's why they were down low at 7 last week, as we talked about on last week's show. And they have to win out to get in, and I just don't see it with what's in front of them.
And Jake, you're high on TCU, but you didn't have them in your playoff. Who do you think they're going to drop a game to?
So I honestly think it might happen today against Texas. That's just a huge game in Austin, and I think we mentioned TCU falling behind in games, coming back. I really don't think if they fall behind today, they're going to have as good a chance of coming back in Austin against Texas State on College Game Day. So if TCU doesn't make the playoff, I think it's likely going to be today out of any of these remaining games.
And Justin, you didn't have TCU in your playoff either. Do you think they're dropping it?
Preview
today?
for the block coming up. I think they're going to lose to Texas, and if Texas beats them, then they're going to rematch again in the Big 12 championship game. But that game probably won't matter because even if TCU loses, I don't think they're going to get in if they win the Big 12 just based off their style points and all the other teams in front of them.
Well, that K-State Baylor game is going to matter a lot for the Big 12 race as well today. That's a very underrated matchup. What about? It's probably not going to happen. But just what if? We're having fun with the what ifs this season, right? What about if LSU wins out and beats Georgia in the SEC championship?
You almost have to.
Then there's three
Yes,
SEC
there's
teams,
three.
guys.
I
I'm
think
telling
there's
you.
three.
Especially if the
have to.
Pac-12 beats itself up, as you guys are saying they're going to. It's going to happen.
I was going to ask if you had a dark horse, but I think LSU is that dark horse
is.
because if
Yep.
they win
At this
out
point, yeah.
and they're SEC champions, you have to put them
You
in
can't
there.
leave
So
the SEC
we don't
champs out.
consider UCLA a dark horse at this point, right? They're a contender.
They should be,
should
but they're
be.
they're ranked so
Right.
low that
Yeah.
you can't.
Yeah.
If UCLA wins out, are they in consideration?
Sure.
I would assume so.
If they win the Pac-12 championship,
Yeah.
With
yeah,
only one
sure, why
loss,
not?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But the thing about the Pac-12 is that just Utah, I know you hate to say it, Utah can beat anyone in there. Like Utah is a legit threat because of what they accomplished last year. I think last year was one of the stronger teams Utah's had all like in the past 10 years, but you can't discredit Utah and what they can do in the Pac-12, but
Yeah. They could mess some things up for sure.
I think just given the overall parity of college football this year, if there's ever going to be a year for a 2-loss team to make the 4-team college football playoff, that is, it's this season. And we mentioned with TCU maybe losing another game, Pac-12 maybe beating itself up. The SEC is looking good to get 3 teams in, guys. I hate to say it, but
We almost saw it with Auburn 5 years ago as a 2-loss team. Maybe we see it this year. We'll see.
all right, guys, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the UNT versus UAB preview, so please stay with us.
This is the moment I knew his future had no boundaries.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
I rescued Toast from a shelter in 2011. I love Toast because she's a lazy diva. Toast does whatever she wants, obviously. She's sleeping right now. She's an epic snuggler. She's so comforting. She's so loving. Toast makes me laugh. When I walked into the shelter, I knew right then that she was special.
Start a story. Adopt at theshelterpetproject.org.
It's a short ride from your neighborhood to your naturehood. To find a neighborhood park or green space near you, visit discovertheforest.org.
Welcome to Mean Green Game Day. The UNT Mean Green are going to travel down to the University of Alabama at Birmingham, not the University of Alabama. That would be a terrible game. But they're going to travel down to UAB. Justin, you want to set the stage for us?
yeah, as Connor mentioned, guys, 10 out of the last 11 games in Conference USA have been wins for UNT, and very few teams in the nation can say that they've won that many straight conference games as UNT has. But UAB, guys, for some reason, always seems to have UNT's number. UNT is 1-5 all time against the Blazers, including 3 straight losses. So this is your kryptonite. You know, coming off 3 really good performances, one of them being losses to UTSA. You can get over the hump today and all but clinch a spot in the CUSA championship game. It'd be really hard to miss if they win today. So big game.
This game is going to be real exciting for offense too, because the number 1 run game in Conference USA, the UAB Blazers. Number 2 run game in Conference USA, the North Texas Mean Green. So although it might not be the most exciting game in the air today, it's going to be really high scoring, I think. I would definitely take the over on whatever the over is today. I don't think it really matters. And it's just going to be such a cool atmosphere. I know UAB's favored by like 6 points.
Yes.
I would take UNT plus 6 there. This is such a hot team. I would not bet against them.
Yeah, I would agree with the +6 there. And remember, the home team gets 3 points baked into their favor.
Right.
And speaking of home team, UAB's been a very good home team this season. Much better at home than they are on the road. Like, they've honestly played better teams at home than they've played on the road, yet their record is better at home than it is away, which is just crazy to me. But you know what? That's another Conference USA nugget for you. Like, you know, we discussed last week with the power ratings, and like FIU at the time was like 4-4 overall, but power rated like second to last in the country. It's just crazy. But yeah, with UAB, UAB has had UNT's number, to say the least.
Yes.
Honestly, in like all of the major sports, we beat them in basketball last season on a last-second shot, basically.
Right.
Justin and I were watching that game together. We were going crazy. But that's like one of the only times since I've been at UNT that UNT has beat UAB in any major sport.
Yeah. You know, a UNT win today would be considered an upset, right? It would be an upset, a 6-point underdog. Why? I mean, UNT is 5-1 in conference, and UAB is 2-4 with some bad losses. I don't really understand this at all. I really don't think it would be much of an upset. I think UNT should be favored in this game. It just doesn't appeal to me that a 2-4 team in conference is favored by a touchdown over a 5-1 team in conference that is red hot.
Yeah, and ESPN only gives UNT a 33.7% chance
That
to
makes no
win.
sense.
I don't know how they calculate that.
Yeah,
I really want to know the formula.
I don't know how they calculate that either, but you know, I think it's actually a good thing for UNT because they still see themselves as an underdog, and that's just going to rile up the players even more to beat this team that they haven't beat in a long time. So, guys, and I think a really big contributor to that is going to be Austin Aune. He's been playing out of his absolute mind since with the FAU game. Since the FAU game, Austin Aune just has turned into a different quarterback. He's poised in the pocket. He's delivering dimes.
Yeah, look at that one, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is just ridiculous. I mean, look, we got one coming up right here. Steps up in the pocket, dime, touchdown. Yeah. So I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Austin Aune. I mean, last game he threw for 20. He was 25 for 34, 414 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 89.3 QBR. Is Austin Aune going to keep this up, Jake? I want to start with you.
Okay, so here's the thing with this: you could legitimately make a case that Austin Aune is the best quarterback in Conference USA. Obviously, you've got Frank Harris and Austin Reed, right? But when it comes down to just making plays for their team and how he has led this team without a huge run game as of recently, you know, earlier in the year we saw just run, and there was just no balance. There is such a great balance right now, and I think that you can't get laughed out of the room immediately for saying that Austin Aune is the best quarterback in Conference USA. You can make a legitimate case for it using stats. I mean, it's really incredible what he's doing lately.
Yeah, he outplayed Austin Reed. It wasn't even close.
Right. Exactly, right, exactly. Yeah, it was really impressive what he did in that game.
Yeah, stats-wise, definitely. But, I mean, you look at Franco Harris and Austin Reed. They're definitely more explosive quarterbacks. But, guys, stats-wise, Austin Aune's 9th in the country in passing yards and 3rd in touchdown passes. Like, he has completely exceeded our expectations this season. And as far as today's game, yeah, I think he can continue this because last week we saw UTSA put up 44 points with a lot of air yards last week against the Blazers. So not a great pass defense. They defend the run pretty decently. But, yeah, I think he's going to continue it today.
For sure.
And this is not the same UAB defense as it was in years past. And, you know, I know we discussed a couple weeks ago the former UAB head coach, Bill Clark, medically retired several months ago. And he was the reason for UAB's success. He brought them from the dead. Like, UAB didn't have a program several years ago. And Bill Clark, he was already the current coach before they got rid of the football program. He came back and brought them up out of nowhere. They were a great story back in 2018, winning Conference USA. But since he medically retired, UAB has not been the same team. Defensively, they're out of the top 25 for the first time in 5 years, believe it or not. They're 89th in rush defense, which is not like them. You have to keep in mind, that was a top 15 rush defense for the last 3 years. Even in seasons when they would have to replace everybody, they would just reload and continue to do what they've done. But they haven't done that this year. As Jake mentioned, they're 2-4 in conference. Offensively, they rely on one player, a few different plays. They run the ball very effectively, but they don't really have that great of a passing game, which is good news for us because it makes them a little bit more one-dimensional, easier to plan. But, yeah, this is not the same UAB team as years past, but they are a good home team, and that's probably why Vegas has some of that smart money favored towards the Blazers today. But, yeah, -6 for UAB does seem a little bit too much.
Yeah, and Connor, you talked about the struggles they've had so far with it, and it seems to be just closing out games because all 5 losses they've had were within 7 points. And so the losses that they had were against Liberty, Rice, Western Kentucky, FAU, and UTSA, who they took to overtime.
Yes.
So UAB has the talent, but it seems like the head coach just can't close games, or even the players can't close games.
They've struggled against the better offenses in CUSA, Western Kentucky, and UTSA. So that's why I think we're set up pretty nicely offensively today. I want to see a balanced attack like we've had the past few weeks. Start with the run game and then open up the pass game from there. It's worked really well the past few weeks.
My gosh, our offensive line. Can we, is there an argument
MVP for them?
Is there an argument for UNT's offensive line to be top 15 in the country?
For sure.
They're one of the most experienced unit in the entire country, with 4 out of 5 returning starters from last year too. Lots of career games under those guys' belts.
And last year they were top 12 in the country and least amount of sacks given up. They only gave up like 15 sacks last season, and they've brought that same, like Justin mentioned, very experienced overall unit. They brought back all those guys, and they've not only brought back experience, but they've also brought back that playmaking ability. Did you see how great they were in the previous? I know it's FIU, but they were awesome last week. They got to the second level making blocks. We weren't running the ball a whole lot early on, but the times we were, that the offensive line would get to the second level and create these huge holes.
I mean, look at that one right there. Wow.
Yeah. And then Austin Ani, he threw the ball several times in the first half. He had all day to pass. And if you look at their ability to get upfield, that's what separates the decent offensive lines from the great offensive lines. And in my opinion, I don't care that we're Conference USA. I think we have one of the top offensive lines in the country. Yes, I just said that.
Yeah, and
can't argue with that.
You want to know something pretty cool? Austin Ani is the only starting quarterback in Conference USA with single-digit sacks taken. He's only taken 8 sacks this year, so you can credit the O-line. You can also credit Ani a little bit for that. And really, just that it makes it such a balanced attack that you know that Austin Ani is going to have time to throw the ball, maybe something that we didn't have earlier in the year, and you're able to rely on the run and the pass to complement each other now.
Yeah, the only time I think the O-line struggled was against UTSA when we ran for about less than 30 yards. But I think even besides that, UTSA did not get that many sacks against it. So shout out to the UNT offensive line. They're digging down in the trenches. We see you. We see you, big boys. I mean, guys, the key player for UAB, I think, Connor, you mentioned, it has to be Dwayne McBride.
Yep.
They've given him the ball 183 times already. and he's rushed for 1,284 yards. He averages 7 yards a carry and has 14 touchdowns on the year. And even their backup, Jermaine Brown Jr., he's got 90 attempts, and he has 539 yards, averages 6 yards a carry and 3 touchdowns. So this run game from UAB is legit. Jake, I'm going to go with you. How does the defense stop this run game?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, this running back for UAB is really something special. He is first in Conference USA in yardage. The guy that's in second place has almost half as many yards. He's a little over half of McBride's yards, right? That's incredible. So the way that UNT is going to combat this today is just with physicality up front. I think they've just got to bring everything they've got and just not really hold back anything in the secondary. I think they've got to play up today. They've got to play aggressive and play like they really have something to win for today. Even though they nearly have the conference championship game sealed, a win today it would do. I think it's going to start with stopping McBride.
Yeah, McBride's second in the nation, too, in rushing yards and fourth in touchdown runs, and averages 7 yards a carry. If I was UAB, I wouldn't even throw the ball the whole game. But for UNT defensively, since UAB's pass game isn't elite and they don't really have good receivers, or Dustin Hopkins not a great quarterback, you can pack the box today. Get 7 guys up front. Just try to limit that run game. Because for UNT, we have a good run game, but you can open up the pass game. So I'll be worried for UAB defense. For UNT, stack the box and limit that run game, and then there's no passing game for UAB. It's going to be an easy win if they can do that.
So not only is McBride one of the nation's leading rushers, he also is top 10 in the country in most amount of attempts. So UAB, it's not like they hand the ball to him 20 times, which is still a lot, and then they say, all right, McBride, go off for a big run. No, they hand it to him like 25, 30 times a game. He's a workhorse running back. So that's why I think UNT should put 8 in the box.
Oh, that one too.
Yeah, box and 8 kind of defense. Keep in mind, UAB does like to throw a lot of RPO play actions to their tight ends coming across the field. So UNT does have to be aware of that. So safeties can't be too overly aggressive, especially in the middle of the field, because Hopkins is not a great quarterback, but the completions he has are the big plays because opposing defenses cheat up to stop the run. So situationally, be smart today on defense, and we should keep ourselves ahead of the chains.
And McBride's had 20-plus carries in all but 2 games this season. So
Yes.
they use him early and often, so stop the run today, definitely the key for the defense.
Yeah, so I think, without saying, the key players today is going to be our KD Davis, Larry Nixon, Mason Richards, and that D-line that we have.
Good run game versus good run game.
Yes.
guys.
Yeah.
It's going to be a quick game today. The clock's going to be flying.
All right, guys. Well, when we come back, we're going to take a preview of the best college football games around the country today, so please stay with us.
I'm Ryan Seacrest. First responders are people who stand for a greater purpose. They will be there for you when nobody else is, to help you, your family, your community make it through, whatever the day may bring. This is their selfless promise. This is their sworn duty to protect, to serve, to help. They put themselves in harm's way for us. They come to the rescue at times when we need them most. First responders are making enormous personal sacrifices to keep showing up for us and fighting the good fight. Nearly 70% of all firefighters are volunteers. That means when they get injured or quarantined, they may not have a way to pay their rent or keep their family safe and fed. No matter who you are or where you live, when you call 911 and ask for help, first responders show up now. Let's show up for the people who show up for us every day and every night.
I understand. I know it's not your typical resume.
Okay, well.
But candidate. But I've been working double shifts just to pay for books. I've been raising my 2 little brothers. I'm determined, driven, motivated. Isn't that what you're looking for?
Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org.
Hey Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mean Green Gameday. Next to me is Jake Levine, Justin Ballou, Connor Hibbett. I'm your host, Mark Barrera. Guys, we're going to start off doing predictions. Guys, I mean, these two teams, they've been pretty impressive so far. You got number 17, Tulane, taking on number 22, UCF. I'm going to ride the green wave. I think Tulane's going to continue with that undefeated season, so give me Tulane green wave.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting game, actually. I love seeing 2 American teams ranked and playing each other in Tulane. Very cool game. It's on ESPN2, I believe, also. Yeah. So I'm actually going to take UCF, though. I think Tulane, they just have to lose soon. They've had a really magical season. I think it's got to come to an end soon. And if it's going to happen, this is going to be the game. UCF is really good. They're 7-2 overall, 4-1 in conference. They're ranked top 25 now. I think if they're going to lose, it's going to be today. So give me the UCF Knights.
It's awesome to see a ranked-on-ranked Group of 5 game, as you just said. Like, that's awesome. But Tulane's at home, guys. Like, they already beat Kansas State this year. This has been a really impressive Green Wave team. I think they may even be a little bit underranked. So I'm going to go with Tulane today. UCF, I don't know. Going on the road, it's going to be tough. So Tulane and New Orleans. Let's go Green Wave.
So for those of you who don't know all of my favorite teams, I said I wouldn't tell all of them earlier in the show. Well, one of my favorite teams is actually LSU. So I'm going to stay with the Louisiana team and pick Tulane here. Let's go Green Wave. Also, shout out to Willie Fritz, the Green Wave head coach. He's one of my favorite coaches. He's been one of my favorite coaches for years, and I'm glad to see Tulane's finally having a great season. I'm going with Tulane.
All right, sticking with not sticking with Louisiana, but sticking with the Southern schools. You got the SEC, got Alabama, number 9 Alabama versus number 11 Ole Miss at Ole Miss. I think despite being at Ole Miss, I still give me Nick Saban, give me the Crimson Tide. I think it's just too hard not to pick them. So.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Mark here. I think Ole Miss is kind of overrated and overranked. Their only really good win was Kentucky, and now it turns out Kentucky's not that good. The only reason they're ranked is to help out the SEC a little bit, right? And there I just don't see a possibility of Nick Saban and his Alabama Crimson Tide losing 3 regular season games. It's just, it wouldn't make sense for sports in general. So I'm just going to go with Alabama to win this game today like they should.
Now, I agree that Ole Miss is overrated, guys, but Lane Kiffin wants to beat Nick Saban so bad, and this is the year to do it now because I feel like Bama is going to quit on the season. They're done in the college football playoff unless some crazy things happen. So I think with Alabama just feeling down about themselves, Ole Miss has a really good run game, too, which could give Bama trouble. I'm going to take Hotty Toddy today and take a huge upset with Ole Miss. A 3-loss Alabama team, guys. I would love that. Let's go.
I'm going to pick the Crimson Tide in this game. I'm going to go with Alabama. I don't really think Ole Miss is that great. I know I said like 2 months ago that I thought when we had that prediction with Ole Miss and Kentucky, and I said both of these teams are not that good. You're going to find out later. Well, hopefully I'm right. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. I'm picking Alabama. I don't think Ole Miss is that great. Also, Ole Miss's schedule moving forward is not that easy.
Right.
All right, well, guys, going to the Big 12, we have Kansas State versus Baylor. So I'm going to go with Kansas State. I think they're going to take that loss that they had last week personally. So give me Kansas State.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Kansas State. I think they've been pretty impressive this year. Also, Baylor's 0-2 in games where they played a ranked opponent, so I think that's going to continue today. Kansas State also a really impressive win over Oklahoma State when they destroyed them. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Kansas State.
Yeah, Kansas State definitely the better team here. I think Baylor's a little bit overrated, too, even though both these teams can still make the Big 12 championship somehow. So this is actually a really big game. But, yeah, Kansas State's the better team, better quarterback, better defense, better offensive line. So give me the Wildcats.
I'm going to go with the Wildcats. I think they're the better team.
Yep.
All right. Well, guys, the huge game in Austin today. Another Big 12 matchup. TCU versus Texas. I was really going back and forth. I know for a while in the preview I had T just because I didn't know who to pick. You saw my playoff prediction. I'm gonna go with the TCU. I'm gonna go with the TCU Horned Frogs. I think it's gonna be a really high-scoring game. It's gonna be a very fun game tonight in Austin. I think TCU pulls it out, and this is the start to their magical season. Like, they're already continuing magic season, so give me the TCU Horned Frogs.
Yeah, so I'm also going to go with TCU here just because I want them to go undefeated and cause some chaos, and I really don't like the University of Texas Longhorns. However, I think Texas, maybe there's a reason for them being favored today, right? They're at home. It's just going to be a great atmosphere. But I'm going to go with TCU simply because I want them to win and I want them to cause some chaos.
I just don't think TCU is going undefeated. And if they're going to lose a game, I think this is the first game that they're going to lose this season on the road at Texas. This is going to be a very high-scoring game, as we talked about. And earlier, Jake, you said if TCU falls behind, they're in trouble today. Yeah. I think that's what's going to happen. Texas, with that environment, is going to go out in front in the first quarter and never look back. So I'm going Longhorns. I don't think that's an upset, but it's an upset with the rankings at least. Right. Texas at home today.
Horns up today. I'm going with the Longhorns. I think this too good to be true season for TCU comes a little bit down to earth. I think it's a little bit of a reality check for TCU today. Should be a great game, though. Longhorns are a touchdown favorite. I don't know if they'll cover, but I think they'll find a way to win.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be the most interesting game today. I think it's going to be the interesting one.
Most high-stakes game today, too.
For sure.
Maybe TCU or Tulane, UCF, maybe.
Sure.
The group of five for sure. Right. In terms of playoff, yeah.
All right, guys. Well, you got UNT traveling down to UAB. I'm going to go with the UNT Mean Green. I think we are just so much, like we are on a roll to a point to where I don't think it's heading towards this conference championship game against UTSA. And when that happens, I don't know who's going to win.
Right.
So give me the UNT Mean Green, going down to UAB and finally winning at UAB.
I mean, I really don't think we have a choice either. This team's too hot. So I am also going to take the University of North Texas Mean Green to win another football game today. I was right about it last week, and I've been right about it a lot this year. So I think they have to ride the hot hand. I think they should not change whatever they're doing. I know it's been working well at home, not as well on the road, but just bring it into Birmingham today. Don't change anything about the playbook, and just keep up the hot hand.
Yeah, I think ultimately UNT's offense is much more balanced and better offensive line, as we talked about. And both these teams are headed in completely opposite directions. UNT's riding that wave a little bit, feeling good about themselves, whereas UAB's having kind of a disappointing season. So I'm going to take UNT. I worry about, a lot of us picking UNT to win this game, and they're not favored, but give me UNT today.
Hey.
Here we go.
Give me
the
Mean Green.
Embracing his inner Lee Corso. Yes.
Yes.
Put it up.
Do the wave. Do the wave. Yeah. Let's go. I'm going with the Mean Green, baby. They're going to the Conference USA Championship, and it starts today with a huge victory today. And if Western Kentucky beats Rice, that'll give us an automatic bid.
That's
Hype
right.
man,
I love
comment
it,
y'all.
I
Let's
love
go.
it.
All right,
Lee
guys.
Corso in the making.
Yes.
Really quick, one word answer. Are we winning Conference USA?
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. The rematch against UTSA.
It's Mean Green.
It's hard
I
to
don't
beat
know.
a good
I
team
don't
twice
know.
in the
Just
same
say
season.
yes.
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 I'm worried about
UNT
that
will
game.
be Conference USA champions 2022.
That's right.
Guys, thank y'all so much for joining us. Make sure to follow us on all of our socials at NTTV_sports. Thank y'all so much. Y'all have an amazing holidays this coming season.
Go Mean Green.
Go Mean Green.
Go Mean Green.
Go Mean Green.